Hey everyone, and welcome back to The Explainer. If you've been following along with Dev Makwana's wild journey, you know we left off on a seriously devastating cliffhanger. His entire reality just shattered, as all of his metrics, we're talking trust, money, support, completely bottomed out. So today, we're unpacking part B of AI leveling, right where Dev transitions from absolute crushing failure into this infinite, mysterious digital void. Go ahead and grab your notebooks because this is where the story truly begins. Where am I? Just imagine for a second the total, absolute sensory deprivation he's dealing with here. His room, the sound of the rain, the glowing city outside his window, literally even the sound of his own heartbeat. Everything simply vanishes. He is thrust directly into an endless void, falling without a floor beneath him or a sky above him. This quote right here, it isn't just a question about his physical location. It's the ultimate expression of hitting absolute rock bottom. He has been stripped of every single anchor that tied him to his life. It's a terrifying, disorienting moment that immediately hooks us in, putting us right there in the center of Dev's confusion and total vulnerability. But as it turns out, the darkness isn't entirely empty. Through the silence, this enigmatic, almost godlike presence makes itself known. I do not create greatness, I reveal it. And wow, this really establishes the core theme of our entire explainer today. This governing force, the Ascension system, isn't offering some kind of magic wand, It's not just handing Dev unearned power. Instead, it's acting like a mirror, suggesting that the raw materials for greatness are actually already hidden within Dev, just obscured by his worldly failures. It totally reframes his entire tragedy, not as an ending, but as a necessary excavation. Section 1. Falling into the abyss. So before Dev can even begin to understand this new power, he has to fully experience the descent, a slow freefall through this endless sea of glowing blue symbols, programming languages, ancient mathematics, and alphabets he doesn't even recognize. And his stats completely explain why he's falling. Dev's world of shattered dreams literally dissolves into glowing code because his real-world status reached absolute zero. Trust? Zero. Money? Zero. Support and confidence? Both zero. And hope? Critical. Usually, when a person loses everything like this, society writes them off, right? Their story ends. But in this unique universe, hitting zero isn't a game over. It's actually the exact trigger required to break through the fabric of a failed reality and cross over into something entirely new. His mental collapse is physically manifesting as the dissolution of his world. Section 2. Decoding the digital dimension. Okay, so as Dev's fall finally begins to slow down, the sheer, massive, infinite scope of his new reality really comes into focus. The claustrophobia of a dark, failing bedroom gives way to a space that is literally boundless. He finally lands on a transparent floor made entirely of light, entering the digital abyss. Think of it as a hidden dimension where every idea, every discovery, and every possibility is preserved forever. I mean, long before humanity ever created artificial intelligence or computers, this dimension was there. Just imagine the sensory details we get from the source material. Entire galaxies constructed out of floating books, towering mountains built from endless streams of code, and rivers flowing with glowing data instead of water. The stars themselves are constantly shifting into mathematical equations. It's a living, breathing archive of everything that ever was and ever could be. Section 3. The Watcher and the System. But Dev is definitely not alone in this infinite library. As he's standing there, totally in awe of his surroundings, this primal, inescapable feeling just crawls over him. The stars actually begin to disappear, blocked out by something so enormous it kind of defies comprehension. It's honestly one of the most chilling visuals in the entire narrative. The Watcher. We're talking about an entity described as being older than time itself, larger than mountains, with an iris that shimmers with galaxies, raw code, and symbols from non-human languages. It perfectly captures that pure terror and insignificance a human would feel staring directly into the face of absolute cosmic intelligence. Dev is frozen. Every single instinct is screaming at him to run. But in an infinite abyss, there is literally nowhere to hide. Now, you might be wondering, how does an entity older than time communicate with an 18-year-old kid from a tiny apartment? Well, it adapts. The Watcher translates its immense, totally incomprehensible presence into a structured, modern interface. Countless blue windows suddenly pop up, eventually merging into a very clear message: System online, host verified. Welcome, player.
It adopts the familiar language of role-playing games and computer systems to give Dev a framework he can actually process without, completely losing his mind. It perfectly bridges the gap between the divine and the digital.
Section 4. The Logic of Ascension. So, out of everyone on Earth, why pick the kid with zero money, zero confidence, and broken dreams? The answer actually lies in the system's very unique logic. It explicitly states that it did not choose him for strength or talent. Nope. It chose him because he continued walking after losing everything. He did not surrender. He endured when others stopped. The system reveals that it was monitoring every single rejection, every sleepless night, every moment Dev wanted to quit but didn't. Extreme hardship and the refusal to quit in the face of absolute despair are the true prerequisites here. It's a pretty great reminder for all of us, honestly. It's not about how high you start, but how much pressure you can survive without breaking.
And Dev actually fits perfectly into a beloved progression fantasy archetype. Let's compare him to Sun Jinwoo from Solo Leveling for a second. We have Dev at his absolute lowest, completely mirroring Jinwoo's famous status as the world's weakest humper, a fragile E-rank fighter who famously ended up hospitalized from the most minor encounters. Both of these stories utilize this rock-bottom status not as a character flaw, but as a really profound catalyst. Absolute zero advantage turns out to be the fertile soil where true, unbridled growth can actually occur.
And the parallels don't stop there either. Look at how both protagonists cross the threshold into their new lives. Dev has to face the cosmic terror of the Watcher in the digital abyss, and Jinwoo, as we know from the source material, he had to endure a totally horrifying encounter with those massive ancient smiling statues in a hidden double dungeon, a situation where he was literally left behind to be a sacrifice. In both narratives, the protagonist has to survive a paralyzing encounter with a terrifying ancient entity just to prove their mental fortitude. Only by surviving this ultimate test of terror do they unlock their system and officially become a player.
Section 5. The Power of Level 0.
All right, so this brings us to the culmination of Part B. The system is finally ready to render Dev's starting status, quantifying exactly what rock bottom looks like on paper. Title: the lowest player. Level: 0. Discipline: 0. Consistency: 0. And knowledge is at a measly 1. It's very classic lit RPG trope, beginning from an absolute, almost comical disadvantage. But the system isn't sugarcoating his failures here at all. It is forcing Dev to look directly at the sum total of his shattered life.
Most players begin at level 1. You begin at nothing. Just take a moment to let the weight of that statement really sink in. Dev lowers his head, and for a split second, that crushing, familiar feeling of failure tries to return. It is a heavy thematic paradox. To be chosen by the universe, only to be told you are literally starting from nothing. It is a quiet, deeply impactful moment of realization.
But then, the system delivers its final empowering promise. 0 isn't a punishment. 0 is a blank canvas. The system tells him, the lower your beginning, the greater your potential for ascension. And then, a brilliant blue light erupts across the digital abyss. By starting at 0, Dev has completely shattered the ceiling of what is possible. He isn't bound by the rules of level 1. He is the anomaly. And that brilliantly leaves us with this final thought for today's explainer. What happens when the only direction left to go is up? When you have absolutely nothing left to lose and literally an infinite universe of knowledge right at your fingertips? How high can you climb? Dev Makwana is about to find out as he embarks on the path to becoming the AI monarch. I really hope this deep dive into Part B has you as hooked as I am. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to explore Part C with you next time.